Okay, so in this strategy, we're going to go through a hamstring loading strategy, mainly for the distal hamstring, and couple that with a dissociation between the tibia and the femur, where we're trying to get them to rotate in opposing directions, but as we maintain that load via the distal hamstrings, okay? So to show you quickly on the left-hand side here, what we're going to do is we're going to drive that load via the heel into the bench here to elevate the hips from the ground. That's going to concentrate that load via knee flexion via the tibia, which means most of the load comes through the distal hamstring, or that's the segment that is dominating that motion particularly. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have Connor initiate the rotation via the tibia. So let's say we're moving into external rotation of the tibia, so we're rolling onto the lateral portion of the calcaneus. We're going to try to keep the femur fixed as we rotate the tibia into external rotation. As we reach that end range of what we have available to us in terms of tibial rotation, then we're going to bring the femur into horizontal abduction and external rotation. When we're in that position, then we're going to internally rotate the tibia up to its end range, or what we have available, and then we're keeping the femur fixed and then bringing it back into that position as well. So tibia first, femur second, tibia first, femur second, okay? Now, what's important to consider here is that this is a way to challenge that tibia and femoral dissociation in the transverse plane and in the frontal plane as well. So you want to already have the ability to demonstrate tibial rotation. If you have a client that is extremely limited in tibial rotation, then this may not be the strategy you utilize initially, because you don't already have that available tibial rotation. You may have to use more of a local strategy to promote that tibial rotation. And then you can utilize a strategy like this to integrate it into a hamstring loading strategy and to further challenge that relative to the femur. Okay, so we'll show you what this looks like on the right side. So knee at 90 degrees. I'm just going to have Connor extend this knee just so they can see in the camera. You're going to drive load down through the heel and then lift the hips up just 2 or 3 inches so the load stays in the hamstring, not onto the glutes. We're going to have Connor initiate that into tibial internal rotation, and then we'll bring the femur across into adduction, internal rotation. From this position, we'll have him externally rotate and then follow that with the femur, internally rotate through the tibia, femur follows, externally rotate through the tibia, femur follows, internally rotate, femur follows. And we'll have Connor accumulate time through here. Typically I like to accumulate time instead of saying I want you to go through a certain amount of tibial rotations, because oftentimes they try and go through them too fast, which means that they don't accumulate that time under tension via the hamstring. So I'll tell the client to accumulate at least 45 seconds, even up to 60 seconds, while they're actually moving through that slow motion of tibial rotation, letting the femur follow. But do you feel that coming through the hamstrings there, Connor? But you might also feel it changing the sensation of load through the hamstrings, because as you rotate the tibia, that's going to change the tension through the lateral hamstrings and the medial hamstrings. You can relax there now. It doesn't mean that we're trying to do this as a strategy to direct stress into certain portions of the hamstring, but we're mainly looking at it from a segmental standpoint to encourage that hamstring load, that distal hamstring load, while the tibia and femur demonstrate the ability to rotate relative to each other. Okay, and we can manipulate the degree of knee flexion as we progress that as well. But a great way to challenge that ability, always go through the heel, because the heel allows us to rotate. If we have the whole foot engaged with something, then we don't have that ability to rotate the femur quite as much, on the tibia quite as much. This allows us to constrain that motion via the tibia when we have contact with the heel. Okay, so again, easy strategy to incorporate with your clients. If the client struggles with hamstring load, because you could have a client that you've developed that tibial rotation, but they have limitations in hamstring loading, okay, meaning that the limiting factor for how long they can hold this for may be the hamstring. In that scenario, you can use your hands to help the hamstring elevate the pelvis. So it will be a case where Connor, I'll have you go through this again. Extend here, grab your glutes with your hands, and just use your glutes to use your hands to help just support the glutes, so the hamstrings don't have to work as hard. Now, you don't want to support them too much so the hamstrings don't have to do anything, but you feel like that takes some load off the hamstrings. That will allow you then to increase the duration through which you can get some load to the hamstrings, but not too much to the point where it shortens the duration of the task. But it depends on what the intention is. If the intention is to build load tolerance and capacity to the hamstrings, then this might not be the strategy you utilize. But if we're looking to really encourage more tibial rotation relative to the femur, then we can try to reduce the demand on the hamstrings while trying to give Connor more time to experience that rotation of the tibia relative to the femur. Okay, tough one though, right? Yeah. So again, I'd encourage you to try this. Like always, hope it makes sense. If you have any questions, please let us know below.